If you are shopping in the 50,000 rupees to 60,000 rupees segment, your options are surprisingly limited, especially if you want a phone that delivers both flagship performance and serious camera capabilities. That's what makes this comparison is so interesting. On one side is the Xiaomi 17T packed with Leica branding, tuning and a camera-first approach. On the other hand, is the Motorola Signature, which skips the camera partnership but counters with a larger 50 megapixel primary sensor and equally flagship grade hardware. Both phones promise premium design, powerful performance and impressive cameras. Both cost roughly the same, but if you are spending close to 60,000 rupees, you don't want two good options, you want the right one. So which one gives you more for your money and which one should you actually buy? Let's find out. But before I jump into it, if you are new here, I'm Siddharth Malhotra and you're watching Digit, where we bring you detailed, non-nonsense gadget reviews and comparisons. Let's start by talking about why this category is so important. Because once you cross 50,000 rupees, buyer expectations change completely. At 20,000 or 30,000 rupees, you are willing to accept compromises. Maybe the cameras aren't great. Maybe the performance isn't flagship level. Maybe the software support isn't the best. But at nearly 60,000 rupees, those excuses disappear. At this price, you expect great cameras, flagship performance, premium design, excellent battery life and long software support. And that's exactly why the Xiaomi 17T and Motorola Signature are such interesting rivals. Neither is a true ultra premium flagship, but both are trying to give you as much flagship experience as possible without pushing into 80,000 rupees or 90,000 rupees territory. So let's start with the first thing you'll notice every single day, the design. The Xiaomi 17T immediately stands out because of how comfortable it feels. It's compact, easy to grip and surprisingly manageable in a market where smartphones keep getting bigger every year. The flat design, slim bezels and Leica branded camera module give it a clean and modern look. The Motorola Signature takes a different approach. The moment you pick it up, it feels more expensive. The aluminum frame, linen-inspired finish and incredibly thin 6.9mm profile make it feel closer to a traditional flagship. And when you start looking at durability, Motorola strengthens its lead even further. The Xiaomi 17T gets Gorilla Glass 7 eye protection and an IP68 rating. The Motorola Signature gets Gorilla Glass Victus 2, IP68, IP69 and military-grade certification. So if your definition of premium is based on materials and build quality, the Motorola Signature feels more like a 60,000 rupees smartphone. But design is only half the story, because once you turn these displays on, both phones start making a very strong case for themselves. The Xiaomi 17T features a 6.59-inch 1.5K AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate, Dolby Vision HDR10 Plus support and a 12-bit color panel. The Motorola Signature gets a larger 6.8-inch LTPO AMOLED display with a faster 165Hz refresh rate and Dolby Vision support. Now both brands are making some big brightness claims. Xiaomi says 3500 nits, Motorola says 6200 nits, but in our testing, the Xiaomi 17T reached around 70-60 nits in HBM, while the Motorola Signature hit around 2450 nits in HBM. Now, if you're simply looking at specifications, the Motorola sounds more impressive. Bigger screen, higher refresh rate, higher claimed brightness, but in actual usage, I found myself enjoying the Xiaomi display more. HDR content simply looks fantastic on this panel, movies have more punch, highlights look brighter, colors feel richer, and when you are watching Netflix or YouTube, that difference becomes noticeable. However, the Motorola display is still excellent. The larger size makes gaming and content consumption more impressive, while the 165Hz refresh rate makes scrolling feel incredibly fluid. So if media consumption is your priority, Xiaomi has the edge. If you prefer a large and smaller display, Motorola comes out ahead. Now let's talk performance, and this is where Motorola starts flexing its muscles. The Xiaomi 17T is powered by the Dimensity 8500 Ultra. The Motorola Signature uses the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 chipset, and the difference is immediately visible in benchmark results. The Xiaomi scored around 2.1 million on Antutu, while Motorola crossed 3.1 million. Geekbench results tell a similar story. The Xiaomi 17T scored 1700 in single-core and 6308 in multi-core. The Motorola Signature scored 2892 single-core and 9498 in multi-core. In the CPU throttling test, the 17T performed better, sustaining 88% of its peak performance. The Motorola Signature throttled more aggressively, dropping to 61%. But honestly, benchmark numbers only matter if they translate into real-world advantages. Thankfully, in this case, they do. For everyday usage, both phones are equally fast. Apps open instantly, multitasking is smooth, animations remain fluid. You won't notice much difference while replying to messages or scrolling through Instagram. The gap becomes obvious when gaming enters the picture. The Xiaomi 17T averaged around 86 FPS in BGMI. The Motorola Signature pushed close to 120 FPS. That's a sustainable difference. If you are a serious gamer or someone who wants the absolute fastest phone at this price, Motorola wins this round comfortably. That said, Xiaomi deserves praise for its thermal management. The phone maintained around 88% of its peak performance during our throttling test, which is excellent. So while Motorola is faster, Xiaomi remains surprisingly consistent. Now comes the section most people are probably waiting for, the cameras. Both devices come with a triple camera setup. The Xiaomi 17T features a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 50 megapixel 5x periscope telephoto lens, all tuned by Leica. For selfies, you get a 32 megapixel selfie shooter. On the other hand, the Motorola Signature features a 50 megapixel main camera, a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 50 megapixel 3x periscope telephoto lens. For selfies, you also get a 50 megapixel selfie shooter. Starting with the main camera, both phones capture excellent images and you really can't go wrong with either. For this comparison, I shot all my Xiaomi 17T photos using the Leica Authentic profile because that's the mode I personally preferred. The first thing I noticed was the color science. The Xiaomi 17T delivers more natural looking colors, while the Motorola Signature tends to add a slightly warmer tones to its images. Neither look bad, it's simply a matter of preference. In terms of overall image quality, both phones produce sharp and detailed photos, but if you start pixel peeping, the Xiaomi 17T has a slight advantage. Whether it's textures, fine details, or smaller elements within the frame, the 17T manages to retain a bit more information. I also found highlight control to be slightly better on the Xiaomi. Bright areas in the pictures were handled more naturally, whereas the Motorola occasionally pushed the image a slightly more aggressive. Moving on to portraits. And once again, both phones perform extremely well. The Xiaomi 17T stays true its Leica authentic tuning, delivering natural colors and a more realistic look. The Motorola Signature takes the opposite route. Colors are punchier, subjects stand out more, and the final image feels instantly social media ready. Neither approach is necessarily better, but they definitely target different audience. When it comes to details, Xiaomi once again has a slight edge. For example, in this picture, if you zoom into the cap strap, you will notice that the 17T retains more detail. One thing I also noticed while shooting people is that the Xiaomi 17T tends to slightly brightens up the face, whereas the Motorola delivers a softer looking portrait. Moving over to the ultra-wide cameras, Motorola takes a clear win. The Signature's 50 megapixel ultra-wide sensor simply captures more detail than Xiaomi's 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. Images look sharper, cleaner, and overall more flagship grade. Selfies tell a similar story. The Motorola Signature's front camera captures noticeably more detail. For example, if you zoom into facial features like the lips or skin texture, you can clearly see more information being retained. Motorola also tends to brighten the face slightly, which many users may actually prefer. That said, when it comes to portrait selfies, I personally prefer the Xiaomi 17T. The background separation and overall look felt more natural on the 17T. Video recording is also slightly more dependable on the Motorola because the image quality remains more consistent across different lenses. The Signature can shoot up to 8K at 30 FPS with Dolby Vision support. The Xiaomi 17T, meanwhile, is limited to 4K at 60 FPS. Now, battery life is a little easier to discuss because the Xiaomi 17T packs a massive 6500 mAh silicon carbon battery. The Motorola Signature uses a smaller 5200 mAh battery. And in daily usage, that difference does show. The Xiaomi is simply harder to kill, moderate users can comfortably stretch into a second day. The Motorola still delivers excellent battery life, but Xiaomi has the endurance advantage. Charging is where Motorola pulls ahead. The Signature supports 90-watt fast charging along with wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Xiaomi supports 67-watt wide charging. So Xiaomi wins battery life, Motorola wins charging convenience. Now before I get into the verdict, let's talk software because long-term ownership matters just as much as first impressions. The Xiaomi 17T runs on HyperOS 3 based on Android 16. The Motorola Signature runs Hello UI based on Android 16. Both phones promises 7 years of Android updates and 7 years of security patches. That's good to see that brands are now giving 7 years of updates. Now the difference comes down to experience. HyperOS offers more features and deeper ecosystem integration. Hello UI feels cleaner, lighter and closer to stock Android. Personally, I still prefer Motorola software because it feels simpler and less intrusive. But this one largely comes down to personal preference. So after all of that, which phone actually offers better value at nearly 60,000 rupees? Well, if photography is your biggest priority, I would pick the Xiaomi 17T. The Leica tuning, zoom camera and excellent display create a package that feels built specifically for camera enthusiasts. But if you're looking for the more complete flagship experience, the Motorola Signature is the phone I would recommend to most people. It has a better build quality, the better performance, the cleaner software, the better ultra-wide camera and more premium charging features. The Xiaomi 17T wins in some very key areas, but the Motorola Signature wins more of them. And when you are spending close to 60,000 rupees, that's what matters. Not which phone has the better spec sheet, but which phone gives you the fewest compromises. And right now, that's the Motorola Signature. But that's just my opinion. But which one would you pick? The Xiaomi 17T or the Motorola Signature? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next one.